Almost a year ago now, in December 2019, the European Commission launched its Green Deal, which aims to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. Many have celebrated the initiative as a major game changer, but others have also criticized it for not going far enough. What is certain is that as it stands, the Green Deal is both a major challenge and an opportunity. It is a challenge because it will require that almost every aspect of European policymaking, as well as local and national policymaking, is revised in terms of the imperative of sustainable green growth that leaves no one behind. It is an opportunity because major investments in the green transition can foster Europe's socioeconomic recovery following the COVID-19 crisis, as well as securing the continent's future. What is the role of cities in all this? With over 70% of Europe's population living in urban areas, cities are at the heart of the transformation that the Green Deal is to drive. The European Green Deal does not only seek to decarbonize Europe's energy system, but also its industry, transport and heating, much of which is concentrated in cities. Urban development issues cut transversally across all priority areas of the European Green Deal. An effective Green Deal will require strong partnerships with cities, the creation of direct funding channels for cities, as well as the formulation of local Green Deals by city authorities. Listen to what our experts have to say on some of the key aspects of the urban dimension of the European Green Deal.
At the center of the European Green Deal is the target of achieving a climate-neutral Europe by 2050. And according to the Commission, this will require a 90% reduction in emissions from the transport sector, which is a really huge number. And accelerating the shift to sustainable and smart mobility is one of the 8 priority themes within the framework of the Green Deal. Urban mobility is quite weakly emphasized within the communication, the official communication on the Green Deal. For example, public transport is not really mentioned in this communication. The lack of emphasis on the urban dimension is surprising, considering that it's critical for meeting the 90% emission reductions target. Urban areas are estimated to account for around 23% of CO2 emissions from transport in the EU. However, despite this being the case with the communication on the Green Deal, the Commission's DG for Mobility and Transport are currently developing an EU strategy for sustainable and smart mobility. And this document will articulate how the 2050 target will be met in the transport sector in greater detail. The draft of this strategy does mention the urban dimension. It includes an objective of revamping the European agenda for sustainable mobility, sustainable urban and regional mobility, including things like cycling, intermodal transport, and transport on demand. And it also states that this strategy will set a pathway for the sector to master the twin green and digital transitions. So this strategy is really the key opportunity for influencing what EU policy or support for urban mobility will look like in the coming years.
Cities concentrate a lot of activities that can be associated with carbon emissions and also drive the consumption patterns that shape those emissions. So the transition to sustainable energy is not something that you can achieve by a change in technology alone. You have to attend on all the interconnected changes that have to take place at different levels and affecting industries, public services, households, and people. And cities are places where these interconnections become very visible. Cities also provide a lot of opportunities for decarbonization action. For me, there's not one single actor that can deliver the transition. An energy transition requires insights from everyone, from local governments, from private businesses, from families, from communities, from industries. So the energy transition will affect every aspect of our lives, and everybody needs to be on board. And cities are places where you can have certain mechanisms for mobilizing all those voices.
The European Climate Pact aims to get all Europeans involved. It wants to bring citizens, communities, organizations of every sector of the economy and society together to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. The EU Climate Pact obviously wants to appeal to European citizens' concerns about climate, but this inclusion and effectiveness ingrained in the EU Climate Pact is also a response to the new polarized and fragmented political scenario that emerged from the European Parliament elections in 2019. Even if pro-European parties still secure 2/3 of the votes, you have Eurosceptic and far-right populist parties who got 1/4 of the seats. In addition to these, climate narratives are not homogeneous. They vary and they clash between member states too. You have those regions who are more dependent on coal-fired power plants, such as Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, who are concerned about the competitiveness and about job losses. The EU Climate Pact has done well, and it has hit the nail on the head with this initiative of trying to engage as many Europeans as possible, pinning down what climate means to them, and ultimately transforming the talk into climate action. But I think the EU could better assess and respond to European citizens' aspirations, ideas, and concerns if they recognize the role that cities can and should play. Cities have relied to respond to the devastating effects of climate change, and they're leading the transition to a low carbon future in Europe. The combination of their vulnerability to the effects of climate change and also their prominent role in energy consumption mean that they can and that they will take a leading role in leading climate action. In fact, in Europe, they are today responsible for 70% of climate mitigation measures and 90% of climate adaptation measures. So the EU could, through the EU Climate Pact, partner with cities and to make sure that they are meeting the objectives that they are striving for.
Green Deal represents a major shift for European environmental policy. And the action and access of finance at the city level will be key to achieve the program's ambitious targets. Well, first, the majority of the finance available for the EU Green Deal implementation will be likely channeled through existing EU funds and institutions, but more information is still needed to understand whether these delivery mechanisms and funding commitments, one, will be sufficient for the European Union decarbonization targets, and secondly, if they will actually be a game changer to address the city needs, including to urban climate smart infrastructure. So what do we know so far is that although there isn't an explicit mention of cities in the EU Green Deal investment plan, many of the EU funds mentioned on this Green Deal investment plan actually do finance urban climate smart infrastructure today. So such as the Cohesion Fund, the European Regional Development Fund, another fund that is very known, the LIFE program, the Horizon 2020, that's now going to be called Horizon Europe. All of these programs are expected to increase the amount of funding to climate smart projects. So we might expect an overall funding for cities to increase beyond those past levels as the funds are increasing. One key improvement that you could do to cities to have access to climate funds would be responding to political constraints. So we would be simply simplifying it and expanding the access modalities for EU funds. This could be a goal during the preparation period of every programming period. So making more direct access funding channels available to cities. So in parallel, another solution could be expanding the key urban relevant programs in funds such as the Horizon 2020 and LIFE, while also mainstreaming urban action across programs that would be important to increase city level climate action. A third key improvement, in my opinion, would be basically on project preparation facilities. Like they should be definitely strengthened to respond to capacity building constraints in cities in Europe. These facilities, while accessing city officials, they could also be a potential source of knowledge about the EU funding opportunities. So at the same time that they will help cities in Europe to have bankable projects and to build on the climate resilience and climate smart projects, they could also help to solve the knowledge gaps for many of the EU municipalities.